Welcome to the Scout Team MVPs podcast, your home for weekly sports talk, where we break down all of your favorite teams, players, and upcoming matchups. Here are your hosts, the Scout Team MVPs.
That's right. We are back, boys. Rob and Shane, good to have you with me. I'm your host, Chris McMillan, episode number 10 of the Scout Team MVPs podcast. We made it to episode 10. I know it was a question mark, guys, if we were ever going to make it to episode number 10, but here we are, alive and kicking.
Well, if anyone heard what I was saying before
live
we started,
and kicking
then we wouldn't
45-yard
be on
field goals.
No, Rob.
We're not going there. I feel like you should have played what was talked about before this recording started. That would have been ideal.
Yeah, I don't know.
We all know that nobody listens to a sports podcast for the sports. They want to hear the political hot takes.
I don't think they do.
No, you're probably right.
Nope, I don't think they do.
I don't know much about sports, so I don't even know what to tell you.
We know that. Your picks
So,
say
10 episodes in, should we just call her?
Yep, that's it. I quit.
No. Oh, dang it. There it is. Lost already. A minute in.
For those of you listening, if you had your bets in and placed it on Rob quitting in the intro segments, you win. But yeah, episode number 10, we're still around. We're gonna turn this into 1,000 episodes pretty soon. I think. Probably not.
It's 1,000 weeks. That's
No.
like 3 years.
What?
I mean, Shane, you'll be 30.
Yeah, I only work for a bank. My math doesn't need to be that good. It's all right.
Would this bank you work for be Gringotts by any chance?
Ooh, I wish, dude. I'd come there. I'd visit you at work.
Well, I've never heard of that.
Shut up. Don't. Let's be real. We love the HP.
We love the
around
HP
here.
over here.
Big time.
Maybe a little.
Orlando. Yes, boys. Episode number 10. We got lots to talk about, lots happening in the world of sports. The NFL is over, but we got some new football coming around, which we'll get into in segment number 2. But our first topic, we're going to go over the NBA trade deadline, new faces in new places, who went where. Lots of teams in the Eastern Conference shuffling things up a bit to try and get to that top spot, get to those Eastern Conference finals, ultimately probably play the Warriors, right, boys?
Yeah, most definitely. Play the Bucks.
I don't know. I like Phoenix.
In the finals.
Topic number 3, we're going to get into our honorable mentions of the week. Got all kinds of good stuff going on there. Talk a little XFL, Daytona 500, some baseball news, talk some NFL news that came down here recently, and finishing it off, as always, with our Scouting for Picks segment. Do a little pick recap of our last week's picks and get into some new picks for this week. But ultimately, boys, episode number 10, let's get it. And we're back here on the Scout Team MVPs podcast, episode number 10, coming at you. Find us on Facebook and Twitter to get all of the news regarding when we're going to be dropping our next episode, which is weekly on Wednesdays. You can find us on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Also, our podcast profile, anchor.fm/ScoutTeamMVPs. Find us online at ScoutTeamMVPs.com. Hit that support this podcast button if you enjoy what you hear from the Scout Team MVPs. Help us sustain this podcast and keep her rolling. But we are jumping right into segment number 1, and we are talking the NBA trade deadline. Just went down this past week. Lots of big names going to new teams. And Rob, I'm going to throw it to you. Get us started. What's going on in the NBA?
So, as you guys know, Anthony Davis was pretty highly touted there as a trade deadline prospect. The Milwaukee Bucks made a trade with the Pelicans, just not for Anthony Davis. I'll get into that in a second, but I want to talk a little bit about the Wizards and Bulls. They made a pretty big trade. The Wizards sent Otto Porter Jr. to Chicago for Bobby Portis and our ex Jabari Parker. So that's a pretty big deal for the Wizards. So next one I want to talk about is the Clippers and Sixers made a pretty big trade. Philadelphia got Tobias Harris from LA. They also got Boban Marjanovic from LA as well. And LA got Mike Muscala and Wilson Chandler. Those are just some of the bigger names. It was like a 6-person trade. Enes Kanter was waived by the New York Knicks, which is huge because he's a pretty good big man. And then one of the bigger ones I wanted to mention was Marc Gasol going to the Raptors from the Grizzlies for Delon Wright, Jonas Valanciunas, and CJ Miles. So it was a pretty big trade for the Raptors. Marc Gasol's a beast, so that's going to make it tougher for the Bucks in the East there.
What about Tobias Harris to the Sixers? That gives them a pretty deadly starting five.
Yeah, I'm not really like super high on Tobias Harris, really.
He played well the other night.
Yeah, one night though. There's 82 of those nights. I don't know. I feel like the Sixers have kind of all the pieces they need. They just need to start playing what they just don't.
I feel like he makes them a lot better of a team, a lot more of a threat to the Bucks. I think Boston, honestly, Boston's moves I don't think help them put in a position to beat the Bucks. I think now it's the Bucks and the Sixers and the Raptors.
I definitely think that the way to beat the Bucks is down low. You gotta beat Brook Lopez, and because you're not gonna get anything past Giannis, Brogdon, Bledsoe, Middleton, all pretty solid defenders on the perimeter. So you kind of have to work it down low. So I'm kind of thinking that Toronto trade for Marc Gasol is a little bigger than the Sixers one. And on top of that, the Sixers got rid of Markelle Fultz, gave him to the Magic for like Jonathan Simmons or some bull crap like that. I don't know, some ridiculous trade. No, that's not going to help.
Isn't it crazy how the Markelle Fultz experiment just did not work out? Like, number 1 overall pick, was it 2 drafts ago, and hurt a lot, not the player they thought he was going to be. And meanwhile, the Boston Celtics take Jason Tatum right after him, and who's been a stud for them. Gotta think they're regretting that now for sure.
Yeah, you would think so, but I mean, at the time, you never really know. I mean, people also thought Lonzo Ball was going to be a beast, and he's just pretty average. I'd take the Kings' De'Aaron Fox over Ball any day of the week. So, nothing's a given in these drafts.
The Ball thing was a mistake because they thought they were getting LeVar, not Lonzo. I must have read that wrong off the card. I heard LeVar could beat Michael Jordan one-on-one. I mean, I've heard him say that. Yeah. Michael better score every time because he's not going to stop me.
Oh, that's the same LeVar Ball that bricked 8 3-pointers in a row.
Did you guys see that video?
He also averaged 1.8 points per game in his collegiate career to junior college.
Him and Skip Bayless have something in common. Except Skip was a JV basketball, I think. So, but
what did he ride the bench and talk a lot of crap about his teammates or something? Some hot takes about how this team needs to be better.
Yeah, I mean, this NBA trade deadline, there seemed like there was quite a bit of movement this year. I mean, we were all thinking of, we thought about that Anthony Davis. We were talking about that forever, but ultimately, Rob, yes, it did not end up happening. Interesting to see. The Pelicans probably wanted to shut him down the rest of the year, keep his trade value as high as they possibly can, not get him hurt. But ultimately, Anthony Davis says he wants to play. The league also came down and said if he's healthy, he's playing. So it looks like he's been getting booed on his home court, which, I mean, I don't.
Yeah, the first game back, they addressed it in the after game interview, and he said he's just glad to be back on the court, and she brought up the booing, and I thought it was kind of funny because you go out of your way to demand a trade when your contract could be up after this coming year, and and it doesn't happen, so now you have to deal with all the repercussions of that.
Speaking of funny with Anthony Davis, did you guys watch the All-Star draft with Giannis? accusing LeBron of tampering when he said that he wanted to play with Anthony Davis.
I think Giannis definitely set him up there because he took Chris Middleton with the first pick of the reserves, and
well, he said
he was going to, but then I think he's definitely setting up LeBron to take AD just so he could throw that jab in there. I liked it.
Yeah.
I actually think they made a trade in that draft too, didn't they? Yep. Didn't Giannis's team trade for Russell Westbrook?
Yes, they did. They traded Ben Simmons for Russell Westbrook. So we got Russell Westbrook and Joel Embiid on the same team.
Don't you wish the Bucks could have traded for Russell Westbrook?
No.
No, you don't think so?
He's a
over Bledsoe?
What?
Oh, maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, Bledsoe kind of fits into the system a little better just because he's more of a pure point guard.
They should have traded for Frank the Tank, man.
We need some Ray Allen
Frank the
back.
Tank might be getting bought out, so he might be available here if he's not already. He's
Well, they had Sam Decker on the team for like 5 minutes.
It's just good.
Yeah, you know what I'm actually surprised about this trade deadline is how many solid players got traded and then immediately waived from their new teams. Like Nick Stauskas.
Nick Stauskas got traded 4 different times last week. So
Markieff Morris, Omar Catsby, like all these guys are solid players, and they just got Zach Randolph, just get Greg Monroe, who was on the Bucks for a while, just literally just dumped as soon as they were traded to their new team.
Well, the Bucks essentially traded Thon Maker for Mirotic because Stanley Johnson was on the team for a day, and then he was gone for that trade. So it was like a 3-team deal.
That's a pretty decent trade, in my opinion. They kind of needed another big man to help Brook Lopez out. Don Maker wanted to leave, and
that's a great trade.
Happen. Yeah, hell yeah.
You got I think a guy who's a top 10 3-point shooter on the team that makes the second most threes. How does that not help?
Yeah, that definitely helps them. Spaces the floor for sure, and that's another shooter out on the wing. So give that space to Giannis. Let him drive, kick. You got 4 guys now that can shoot threes. Besides, not having Giannis, he's not a very good 3-point shooter. So he drive the lane, kick it out. You got 4 different guys that can make a 3. It's big time.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to shoot it.
Yeah, that's not his game. But looks like we had quite a lot of stuff go down, and during the NBA trade deadline, always fun to see moves being made, and for sure the Eastern Conference looking like they're ramping things up. Got the top teams here making a bunch of different moves. Look to get take that next step here come playoff time, boys, and it's going to be fun times here after the All-Star break. Speaking of the All-Star game, we got that coming up. That's this weekend. You got all the festivities that go on with that. Should be a fun one to watch. But with that, boys, we're going to wrap up segment number 1 and jump into segment number 2 right after this. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you get paid to podcast. For the Scout Team MVPs and what we decided to use to get our podcast off the ground, there was no better choice than Anchor. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. Jumping right into segment number 2 here on the Scout Team MVPs podcast. Chris McMillan here with Rob and Shane. And boys, we had some exciting things happening this past weekend. And one of those exciting things was the first games ever for the Alliance of American Football. Not sure if you guys caught those games at all, but we want to give our listeners a little bit of a rundown just what the AAF is, what they're looking to do here with this new league. Looks like this league was started, by Charlie Ebersol and Bill Polian. You guys probably recognize Bill Polian's name there, NFL Hall of Famer. But this league, boys, looks to be sort of a minor leagues of sorts for the NFL, developmental league. They said they want to really get those quarterbacks and those offensive linemen up to par, get a lot of these different guys playing time. We have a lot of former NFL players in this league, got some guys that didn't really make it the first time around, looking to get back at it, all kinds of different talent levels here. But ultimately, we have a 10-week season for the AAF, 2-week playoffs with those 4 teams. Like I said, aiming to be a developmental league for the NFL. 8 different teams in this league, boys. And I want to know which of these 8 teams has become your new favorite.
Well, I don't know.
Great answer.
What's that one? Memphis Express. Their quarterback, I really like him, so probably gonna go with that.
Do you want to, Rob, speaking of the Memphis Express, that's one of the 8 teams in this new league. Do you want to give us a rundown of the rest of the teams in the league?
Yeah, so there's a team from Arizona called the Hot Shots, Atlanta Legends, Birmingham Iron, Memphis Express, Orlando Apollos, the Salt Lake Stallions, San Antonio Commanders, and San Diego Fleet.
So, Shane, of those 8 teams, I want to get your new favorite team now. I know you're one of those bandwagon guys. So, who are you jumping on now?
Well, I have a real love of the Tennessee. I spent some time there, and Tennessee is a favorite of mine. So even though I hear Memphis isn't necessarily the nicest city, and they kind of lost really bad the first week, I'm gonna go with Memphis.
The old Mike Singletary coach Memphis team. And speaking of those different head coaches, you're going to recognize some of these different names, boys. Coach of the Atlanta Legends, Kevin Coyle. Tim Lewis, Birmingham Iron. Mike Singletary, again, for the Memphis Express. Big one here, Steve Spurrier for the Orlando Apollos. Rick Neuheisel, Arizona Hotshots. Dennis Erickson, Salt Lake Stallions. Mike Riley, coach of the San Antonio Commanders. And Mike Martz, coach of the San Diego Fleet. Those are some of those names are pretty recognizable, boys. Some of those stand out for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the OC of Atlanta is Michael Vick, so he's kind of a big name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, mine is going to have to be – so I watched the San Antonio and San Diego game this weekend, and I liked what I saw, but my favorite is going to have to be Orlando Apollos. Steve Spurrier.
They can't be your team.
Yeah, they can.
No, they're mine.
No, they're not yours. They're mine.
Well, we can like them together.
Me? No,
let's buy some
can't.
merch.
I'm buying. I already have my merch on.
You got it. You got Apollo gear already.
He does not.
No, I don't. But no, for real. The game. I don't know if you guys caught any of them, but it seemed like there weren't really many short plays. A lot of longer throws. Not too many runs. It seems like a throw heavy system so far. Saw a lot of great catches, a lot of sideline catches. Pretty exciting to watch, actually.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I watched a couple of those games. I thought it was some surprisingly good football. I mean, like I talked about earlier, we had some familiar faces, not only in the coaching ranks, but also player-wise. We have Christian Hackenberg, quarterback from Penn State.
Not a great debut by him.
Not a great debut, but he's a recognizable name. We also have Matt Sims and Aaron Murray at quarterback position.
Not a great debut for Matt Sims.
Well, let's give him some time, Shane. It's only week 1, right?
No.
This is a big one, though, from Alabama. Trent Richardson, who former, top 5 pick for the Cleveland Browns, playing in the AAF with the Birmingham Iron. He did have 2 touchdowns this weekend. Maybe something of a start for him there.
Hopefully, his NFL career was kind of a real flush down the toilet.
Yeah, not so good, but I mean,
he showed spurts of being able to play, but yeah, he just didn't have it.
Did you guys know how the pay scale breaks down in that league, right?
Yeah, it looks like everybody gets a 3-year deal for $250K.
Well, it's actually broken up though. It's you get paid $70,000 your first year, $80,000 your second year, and $100,000 your third year. So everyone makes the same amount of money. There's nobody,
which I like.
A big amount.
You like that?
Plus, they have health care that they're signed up with when they do the league. So that's
the reason I like it is because it kind of, we're used to seeing these athletes make millions and millions of dollars, and it kind of it makes it a little more relatable when they get paid, I don't know, as much as my brother, it's kind of neat.
I do like that. I also like the fact too that they have in the off season looks like they're given potential internships and go back to college if they want to as well. I think I read, which is awesome. I mean, it looks like they're really taking the developmental part of the league to heart, and which I like to see. And a lot of these guys, former NFL players, but a lot of the guys too, never made it to the NFL, trying to make their mark, gives them another place to showcase that. I mean, they're broadcast on CBS. I mean, they can't get much bigger of a platform than that.
But it's not going to be going forward.
And I was surprised. I was surprised to see how it was like already on CBS, a big production for the first games. It was kind of cool to see. They made it really feel like you're watching the NFL with having the same CBS announcers and all that.
But that's going to be the only week that they're doing that. Now going forward, it's going to be on cable TV. I think they had a TV rating of 2.4, like on the scale or whatever, however they do that. For the opening, which beat out the NBA actually on those days, but they're going to be on cable now, so they're going to lose some of those ratings. They're probably going to get cut in half. And part of those 3-year contracts, I don't know if you heard this, but they can't sign with any other league besides the NFL, which is a preemptive strike at the XFL, which I think we're talking about.
Yes, we are. We're going to talk a little bit about the XFL coming up in our honorable mentions segment, Shane. But yeah, kind of interesting to see, especially getting that league up and running this year, 1 year before the XFL, which we'll talk about later. But ultimately, I think this league will serve its purpose and it'll hopefully do a good job. And like I said, just even if that first game is on CBS and it might, if it's moving next week, still they got a lot of eyes on it. People are talking about it all over social media. Hopefully they can sustain that success.
I agree.
Thanks, Rob.
I don't see it, honestly. I don't think that they're going to maintain that level of success throughout their entire time. We've seen this before with the XFL, which actually had an opening week when the XFL Part 1 had an opening week rating of almost 10, which is unheard of. But then it dropped to like 4 and then 2 and then less than 1 by the third week. So I think once like college football comes around and baseball comes back and the NBA playoffs are around, they're going to be in some trouble with the AFL or whatever.
Yeah, but any American Football League is still more interesting than watching the Brewers play.
I very much disagree with that.
Shane is like the only person I know that would rather watch baseball than anything.
Well, you clearly don't have many smart people then.
Ultimately, boys, I mean, let's run down the list of scores for the week 1 of the AAF. Orlando Apollos, coached by Steve Spurrier, like we talked about, 40-6 over the Atlanta Legends.
Ooh, my Orlando.
Yeah, get it. San Antonio Commanders, 15-6 over San Diego Fleet. We had Memphis at Birmingham. Birmingham coming out on top in that one, 26-0. Trent Richardson, 2 TDs on the day.
For the record, he had 23 carries and 58 yards, so not a very great game for a substandard league like that.
Well, your boy Hackenberg, 10 for 23 with an interception and 87
That's why
yards.
He's not in the NFL anymore, bud.
You want him on your fantasy team next year? That seems like a good pick with number 1 there, man.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, so our last game of the day, boys, Salt Lake at Arizona. This was a shootout, fun game to watch. Arizona Hotshots ultimately coming out on top 38-22 over the Salt Lake City Stallions. I'm not sure what you guys thought about the jerseys of these teams, but some of them I think are lacking a bit.
Yeah, and I think that's to be expected of a new league. I mean, the logos are pretty cool, but yeah, the jersey designs are a little dull.
I just thought it was interesting, a quarterback that I don't think I've ever heard of, or I don't remember hearing of, John Wolford, ahead of Trevor Knight, throws for 4 touchdowns and 275 yards for the Hotshots. Had you guys heard of him? Right. I guess he played at Wake Forest. He threw for almost 10,000 yards and 59 touchdowns. But yeah, I guess
I noticed there's a lot of ex-college players that, just didn't quite make it to the NFL or did and couldn't handle it. So, I don't know. I guess it's good to see them kind of continue their football education, if you will, after college.
Rashad, another guy, Rashad Ross, 105 grabs, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns.
105 grabs.
It's a hell of a day.
Or 5 grabs, 103 yards, and 2
That's a heck
touchdowns.
of a day.
Great season.
Both teams are throwing to him.
All these people, some of them I haven't heard of really too much.
That's gonna be the whole league, pretty much.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, I think no matter what goes on from here, I feel like it was a pretty successful opening weekend for the AAF. I guess time will tell if they're ultimately going to sustain this level and if they're ultimately going to make it. But I have some high hopes for them. Hopefully, they can be okay.
I do too, Chris, because the game I watched was San Antonio and the San Diego Fleet, whatever it was. There was only 21 total points, but it felt way more exciting than like 15-6. I just think the play call is more aggressive, and it's more to watch on.
The one thing too that I want to touch on quickly is also, in this league, some different rules. They do follow mostly NFL rules, but some of the different rules they have: no kickoffs. They just start the game at the 25, and there are no extra points. And so every time you score a touchdown, you have to go for 2. Kind of interesting.
Did you hear how you have to do it?
And on top of that, I've seen in that game I watched, I saw like 5 people get blown up and there was no flag. So that was kind of cool to see.
Did you see how you have to do an onside kick if you want to do one?
Yeah, why don't you run that down for us, Shane?
You have to go for a 4th and 12 from your own 28 to convert an onside kick. And if you get it, your drive continues. You can't do it outside the last 5 minutes, or if you're down by like more than.
Yeah, I think it was 17, but yeah, still, I mean, I like that rule. It makes it a little more exciting for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the conversion percentage on 4th and 12 isn't high. I mean, you got to think it's higher than an actual onside kick, but still tough to do.
Yep. I mean, all kinds of fun things. Hopefully, really get people excited, continue to watch it. But I'm excited for it. Hopefully, it continues. But boys, go Orlando Apollos. Shane riding the Memphis train. Rob, let's get that Orlando merch and take it all the way to segment number 3 coming up next. Jumping right into segment number 3, boys. Honorable mention time. Quite a few honorable mentions this week. And our first honorable mention, we touched on it in the last segment, and it is the XFL, which is coming next year, 2020. Founder Vince McMahon. We've been down this road before, boys. He lasted 1 year back in 2001. Didn't turn out so good, but they're doing things a little bit differently this time around. And they started off that with Commissioner Oliver Luck, who you probably know as Andrew Luck's father. And they also just signed their first head coach, who will also be the GM of the Dallas team. And that's Bob Stoops, former Oklahoma head coach. Just based off of that, boys, is the XFL going to survive this time around?
You can throw all the big names you want out there, but if it's not run well, then it's probably not going to survive. And still the same owner, right?
Sure is.
Yeah,
well, WWE was successful.
Yeah, no, the WWF was more successful until they got sued for their name, WWF. Then once they turned into WWE, they're a multi-billion-dollar a crap show. All the wrestlers suck nowadays.
Company.
Stone Cold Steve Austin doesn't show up anymore. The Rock is doing movies. Big Show, I'm pretty sure, had a heart attack because he's 800 pounds overweight. Kane, I'm sure he's dead.
So are you.
The Undertaker might still be alive and be wrestling, but other than that, there's a bunch of hipster, bogus bullcrap in there. Sorry, I don't like wrestling anymore. I used to watch it a lot, but they really...
that was a really pointless rant, but yeah.
That hipster, bogus bullcrap
are we not discussing sports right now? Sorry, Shane, that, wrestling's too lowbrow for you. Piece of turd.
Huh.
You just said that, you just pretty much confirmed that you are a little down there. You called me a piece of turd.
You are a piece of turd.
That was like the best.
I wasn't going to call you a piece of you moron.
Wow.
Now we got to bleep that out.
Anyways, moving on. I was hoping you'd ask me which my favorite team would be, because I think it'd be pretty obvious.
Well, Shane, speaking of those teams, we have teams, like I said, in Dallas, team in Houston, Los Angeles, New York, St. Louis, oh gosh, Seattle,
Yeah, the Seattle
Bay,
team, man.
and Washington, D.C.
I don't even know who's on the Seattle team or what their name is, but that's who I'm rooting for.
To be determined.
Oh, the to be determined. Okay. I'm rooting for that team. They should call them the Supersonics. They'd probably make a lot of friends out there.
Bring back the Sonics, XFL.
That's the only way this league will survive.
I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see if what they do differently this time around. Obviously, only lasting one season, the first rendition. I mean, they're going to have to do something a little bit different. I don't think He Hate Me is walking through that door, but XFL coming your way in 2020, going to be running alongside the AAF. Will be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Next honorable mention. Go ahead, Shane. Go ahead.
Didn't they do a thing with where they would put the ball and they would have to fight over who got the ball and that team got the ball first or something in the original?
Yeah, they did a little scrum instead of the coin toss. They did a little scrum for the football, and whoever ended up with it got the ball first.
I remember that. Yeah, that was okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy.
No, I don't think we'll be seeing that this time around, but that is our first honorable mention of the week. And jumping right into our second honorable mention, we're going to talk about the Daytona 500 happening this Sunday, February 17th at 1:30 on Fox, coming to you from the Daytona International Speedway. We're gonna give our predictions of that race coming up in our Scouting for Picks segment, boys. But are you excited for the Daytona 500 this weekend?
Kind of. I still wish a lot of the older drivers still were racing, but a lot of the newer guys are pretty good too. Still rooting for some of the old guys. I'll give you my pick later, but yeah, I mean, I wish they would let it loose more. Daytona and Indy, they seem to ride a little more free and kind of bump and grind with other drivers. So, it's a fun race to watch, even if you're not really into racing, just because of how crazy.
Sure do, Rob.
Crashy.
So I had a stopwatch on that, and you talked for about a minute and said nothing.
Yeah.
You're I like the older drivers.
At least I got a whole sentence out.
Are good, but I like the older ones. And then there's NASCAR, and you drive in a circle, and all this other stuff. But anyways, I haven't.
Go ahead.
I haven't really followed NASCAR in my lifetime. I was only aware of what happened in it because my mom was a NASCAR fan. Other than that, I don't have the patience to watch a race for that long, especially since they're just driving cars. I don't know. That's me.
I mean, it's one of the obviously most. It starts their season, right? Daytona 500.
It's their
huge
Super
race.
Bowl.
It is their Super Bowl. Kicks off their season. Huge race. Lots of different fans in NASCAR. And like I said, we were going to pick our winner in our Scouting for Picks segment. But that is our honorable mention number 2 for this week. Jumping into some baseball news for our third honorable mention this week. And Shane, I want to talk to you about Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, 2 huge, huge free agents still yet to sign with the ball club.
Right. And I mean, you're hearing rumors now, Bryce Harper actually getting recruited but spending time with the Giants. I feel like we're kind of, I don't know what he wants. Washington offered him $300 million. I don't know how you can sit there and tell me, I mean, Washington's not a bad team. I mean, I know the Giants are, a storied franchise, but I find it hard to believe that with their situation, they've got the $300 million contract to offer Harper. And then in terms of Machado, the Yankees did offer him $220 million for 6 or 7 years, was the last I heard on his contract. So the Yankees are looking at him. But it is finally time in the next 2 days. By the time I think this airs, pitchers and catchers will be reported to spring training.
Does it feel good?
Thank God baseball season is back.
Yeah, I mean, with the winter that we have here in the Midwest, it's always nice to know that spring is right around the corner, and our first sign of that is, like you said, Shane, when those pitchers and catchers report and spring training ultimately gets underway. Definitely looking forward to baseball being back, especially here in Wisconsin. Brewers 1 game away from that World Series. We can't wait to see what they got this year. But yeah, pitchers and catchers reporting this week. And we're going to jump into our last honorable mention of the week. And that is some news that just came down recently from the Heisman winning trophy quarterback of Oklahoma, Kyler Murray, turning down that $4 million contract he got from the Oakland A's, being that first round pick last year, and fully committing going forward to being an NFL quarterback and ultimately this draft coming up this year. Thoughts on that?
Well, I would not want to go to Oakland either. So the NFL seems like a smart choice. I mean, more money in baseball, but it takes longer to get to the pros, and it's not as easy to do. And I'm not saying playing quarterback in the NFL is easy, but you get a lot more.
Hackenberg.
You get a lot more fame doing that. I mean, that's a fact.
Yeah. My thing with that is he's still probably going to end up on a bad team.
I mean, baseball, you're looking at 3 years until you get to the pros. 2, I mean, depends on if you're Mike Trout or Bryce Harper, but most guys, it takes 2 or 3 years.
At least.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're looking for that immediate kind of success there, I mean, he's probably going to be going in round 1 in the NFL draft. I think NFL the way to go. But yeah, I mean, if he wanted to make it in baseball, he was going to, like you said, he's going to have to work his way up, go through the minor league system. But I mean, anytime you have an athlete that is good enough to get drafted in the first round in both baseball and football, I mean, I think you got some pretty decent options there. But Kyler Murray ultimately deciding to go to the NFL, turn down that baseball career, at least right now. I mean, it'd be interesting to see. Maybe he can pull a Dion and play both.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anybody that could do it, it's like you were saying, it's probably him with being able to be drafted first round in both. That'd be pretty cool.
If there's one person he could ask for advice, I heard Bo knows.
Bo does know. Bo Jackson, another one.
Bo does know.
Well, with that, boys, that's going to wrap up our honorable mentions for this week, and we'll be right back after a short break and jump right into our scouting for picks. And we're back here on episode 10 of the Scout Team MVPs podcast, jumping right into our scouting for picks. Let's recap those picks from last week, boys. And the first one, we had the Miami Heat and the Sacramento Kings. Kings coming out on top 102-96 over the Heat. Rob, you picked the Kings, and you were the only one to get that game correct.
Of course. I mean, I told you Chris Webber was going to bring it home for me, so...
He sure did. him and Vlade getting the job done. For the Kings, next game, we picked Michigan and Wisconsin in college basketball. Yep. Michigan at home, ultimately coming out on top 61-52. We all went with Michigan that game.
Of course.
Yep.
Next one, boys, talking a little hockey, Pittsburgh Penguins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay ultimately coming out on top 5-4. Rob and I picking Tampa Bay. We were correct. Shane, Pittsburgh, wrongo.
Did I not say that it was going to be a high-scoring affair?
No.
I did. I picked my over-under thing. You don't remember that?
We can talk about what you're lying later.
I'm just saying.
Well, with those picks, boys, brings our overall scouting for pick standings to this. Rob sitting on top. 19-10. Shane and I tied for second at 14-15. Rob kind of pulling away with this one.
I almost have a 2.0 KD, guys. Get on my level.
My defense, I missed 2, and if I had been here, I'd be better than him. So
I doubt it. You're freaking.
Can't say that.
Yeah.
Why not? Why can't we say that?
We just can't. Got some work to do, Shane, to knock Rob off the top spot there, but we'll definitely get it done. Make up some ground this week with our picks. And our first one sent in by John on Facebook. We're going to pick the Daytona 500 winner, and we are going to start with Shane.
Well, I don't know much about NASCAR. The only driver I ever really knew much about was Jeff Gordon, and again, I told you why. So the dude that drove the car he has is William Byron. That's who I'm going to pick.
I like it. That's good. That's a good pick. Rob?
Wow. I'm going to go with my guy Jimmy Johnson. I'm going to pick the fellow beardsman.
Jimmy J for the win.
I mean,
You're
I
both
think
wrong.
in reality it's going to be whoever you pick. Because I think I
Probably.
know who you're picking.
Who am I picking?
You're picking Brad Keselowski.
No, I would never do that in a million years. I'm picking Martin Truex Jr.
No,
Book it.
that's not bad.
Book it. You want to know why?
Because you're weird?
I don't know. I think he won a couple of races last year is kind of why I picked him. But...
Oh. Yeah, I mean that's the thing about Daytona and all the, the big fun races. Anyone can really win them, So if you told me, you gave me a list of 12 guys and say, I could see them all winning it. So, yeah, it's going to be fun.
Does it ever seem to you like this guy just says stuff that just makes no yeah, anybody can win that stuff. Yeah, anybody can win the plays. Yeah, that's accurate. Like, doesn't necessarily need to be said, but yeah, if you're out there, you got a shot to win.
You still there, or do you quit again?
Nah, just keep going.
No, but you know what? What also another fun fact about Martin Truex Jr. boys is he's going to be making his debut in the number 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. So I mean, ultimately, he's probably just going to win based on that fact alone.
Look at you looking up things.
I do research, Rob. Come on.
Yeah, I'm proud of you.
He's my boy, Martin Truex Jr. Give me that Orlando Apollos merch and Martin Truex Jr. merch. I'm rocking it every day.
That's funny.
Another shout out to John for that pick. He wanted us to pick that one.
Finally,
shout out to
from the crowd.
Thank you, John, for that one. John, let us know who you think your winner is going to be. Send us that on Facebook or Twitter.
Next one, boys, says Kevin Harvick. Just saying.
All right. Well, we'll see. Maybe he's going to go Martin Truex Jr. because he picks winners. But Rockets at Warriors, boys, is our next matchup that we're going to pick, and that game is happening this week, Saturday. Showdown. We got the Beard versus about 16 good people for the Warriors. Rob, who you got in that one?
You know how hard it is to pick against the Warriors? It's very hard. So I'm going to have to go with the Warriors.
Weak. Shane?
Well, let me do an impersonation here with my pick. Basketball is a game where you just got to put a ball in a hoop. And I bet that the team that's better at putting the ball in the hoop might win the game. But anytime you play, anybody can be beaten on any given night. This is actually the Sports Cliches podcast right now. But nah, give me the Warriors.
All right. We got Rob and Shane both picking the Warriors. I'm picking Bucks and 6. Nope. I got some ground to make up. I'm going Rockets. Give me the Beard going out for about 60 points in that game. Rockets going to come out on top. Next one, boys, and this is a good one. Going back to the AAF, we have the Orlando Apollos. Let's get it at San Antonio coming up this Sunday. Let's hear your picks for this AAF matchup. Shane?
Well, I know who you're going to pick, so I'm going to go with San Antonio. I think they look pretty good in their first game.
Good enough for me. Rob, who you got?
He picks Awkward Silence to win.
Do 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 do. Rob, who you got? Orlando. Rod, shout out. Rob and I going Orlando Apollo. Shane going with San Antonio. Shane, you know who's on the San Antonio squad? You might recognize this name. J-Ron Elliott. Ring a bell?
Should it? Because it doesn't.
Former Packers outside linebacker. Rob quit again this episode, everybody, for the 8th time.
It's easy to quit when you work with a bunch of idiots.
Oh, wow.
That wasn't nice.
No one cares.
Not very
Let's
nice.
go. Wrap this crap up. Shane, if I hear your voice one more time, I'm going to come over to your house and murder you.
Whoa. Heard it here first.
Yeah, way to say that. I wind up dead. I know who did it.
couple of good games we just picked there, boys, and ultimately it's going to propel me to 3 victories with my picks. But with that, we are going to wrap up our scouting for picks segment and jump into our last segment and wrap it up for the week. And we're back here on the Scout Team MVPs podcast to wrap it up for the week. Pretty solid episode number 10, off the rails as per usual. But ultimately, I think we got some good content in there. Shane, what did you think?
Yeah, I think it should become a recurring theme or a bet weekly to see how long certain people go before they call it a day.
Oh, you mean like right now, how we're in our last segment of this episode and we have no Rob again?
Yeah. It's kind of like, I think that'd be a good thing to bet on. I mean, what else are you going to do?
I mean, I think he's quit 3 or 4 times this episode. So, I mean, we're on track for the over.
Yeah, if that's what you had in the book. I feel like this is going to go to Vegas, man.
Going to be one of those weekly prop bets on this Scout Team MVPs podcast. Shane and I closing it down for this week's episode. We talked all kinds of stuff, Shane. We talked NBA trade deadline. We talked about the AAF, the Alliance of American Football.
There you go.
We talked a little bit of baseball in our honorable mentions. We talked some XFL. We talked Daytona 500. Pitchers and catchers reporting this week. Hallelujah. Kyler Murray fully committing to the NFL going forward. Our scouting for picks segment, we picked a couple of good games and also who we thought was going to win that Daytona 500. But ultimately, I think the big news, again, Shane, is will this winter ever stop? I'm sick of shoveling snow.
Yeah, probably not. Last year we had snowstorms in friggin' April, man.
Yeah, I mean, 2 feet of snow last April was definitely a downer. But, I mean, we've just had some back-to-back storms coming through, and with the cold and stuff, I'm just ready for it to be done.
Yeah, I mean, luckily the Brewers have a dome or a roof, I should say.
Yeah, they sure do. Which
see you March 28th, St. Louis. Bunch of turds.
Let's go. Opening day. Let's get it. But
cheaters.
With that, Shane, episode number 10 coming to a close. Hopefully, we can restructure Robb's deal, maybe get him back on next week. But if not, we'll throw a replacement in there. Get some guests on the show.
Taking applications.
Now, if you'd like to be the third member of the Scout Team MVPs podcast in place of Robb, since he quits every week, please send your applications to scoutteammvps@gmail.com.
Yeah, if nobody else
resume
does
and
it,
cover letters.
You're not going to like the replacement. So.
Resumes and cover letters, send them our way. We'll read through them all. Hopefully we get some applicants. I mean, because it looks like we're needing a third body here.
Yeah, Shane. And you know who it's going to be if there are none.
I know he can't do it. We don't want him.
I think it'd be funny.
I don't think it would be funny. I vowed to never have him on here.
This person knows who they are.
Yep, shout out. With that, Shane, let's wrap it up. Let's put a nice bow on this one for the week, and ultimately, let's go Orlando Apollos.
Yeah, I can't get super excited about that.
All right, Shane, have a good week.
Yep.
Get that shovel out. Get your snow pants on. Get ready to go to work.
Work boots.
See you later, Shane.
Thank you for listening to the Scout Team MVPs. Be sure to subscribe and tune in next week as the MVPs discuss all the non-stop action in the world of sports.